Hola, muy buenos días. Mi nombre es
Hello,
Felipe
good morning. My name is Felipe Mella, Executive Director of
y todas
the
quienes trabajan
Gabriela Mistral Center. On behalf of everyone working here, I welcome you to this seminar, Practices and for Communities of Commitment and Collaboration. It's been a year that has been marked by these events when we are trying to seeking the possibility to look for new possibilities for meeting. So I take this opportunity to thank the regional coordinator of Pro Helvetia with representation in Argentina, Brazil, in our country. This is a seminar that intends to have a reflection and invention
culturales y
coming from
ciudadanas
artistic cooperation, cultural cooperation, and
escénicas.
communities from the performing arts perspective. For CAM, this is one of the central axes.
Ya en contextos
It
hostiles,
has become a priority under hostile context to be reinforced in the coming years. We have tried to bridge with other disciplines, and I understand that a cultural center must be open to different artistic and cultural expressions and be an active participant of the
a través de una estrategia
cultural
radial,
and territorial community through our
Barrio Arte,
strategy with alliances for art to reveal the identity, the cultural identity, having the
que abarca
collaboration of different entities in the aspect of arts in the metropolitan region, the network of theater rooms, and finally, the ties and the
todo
bonds
esto no tendría
we
sentido
have built. But this would be senseless without understanding what we have in common, what embraces us as a community. And this seminar, in this seminar, we
quiero antes
hope
de
to
terminar volver
join
a
them,
agradecer a Proelvesia
even if it is virtually. I
y
once more thank
seguir trabajando
Pro Helvetia, And we hope to be working as an alliance now when it's most needed for a better culture in our country. Thank you very much. And this for you now. Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for that introduction. On behalf of Pro Helvetia, I thank you for your participation in this seminar of core practices. Let me tell you that if you want to change the language, if you want to hear to the translation to the English or versions, you need to go below and select the language. We're very happy to start today this seminar, and we're closing with this seminar a series of activities we have organized in the South American region as a transition gesture, which is exchanges between Switzerland and South America for the opening of Pro Helvetia offices in South America. I'm very excited to tell you that from Berlin, Alemania, we have the many organization and association that is articulated from the artistic movement and organizations in order to give value the instances of advocacy and arts promotion. The unknown declaration of the many, it's an collaborative articulation to generate political activisms, fostering performing arts as a means to build a diverse society. This is an inspiring process for Chile, taking into account the social participation context on one hand, and on the other hand, the crisis the creative sector is within today. Let me introduce Raul Walsh, visual artist. He works in Berlin, activist, member of the Council of the Many and the Association of Berlin Artists. Currently, he's a professor at the International
Arte Público y Nuevas Estrategias Artísticas en la Bauhaus Universität in Weimar.
At the university. Let me introduce Philippe Rimet as well, from the University of Arts Berlin and the Theater Academy in St. Petersburg. She works as an scenic
directores y teatros. Además de su trabajo teatral, realiza proyectos e instalaciones de
projects and installations. So,
to the people. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you very much for inviting us to this conference in Chile. Before coming to the Declaration of the Many, we would like to tell you a little bit how we started our movement in Berlin. So it's, I think around 4 years ago, the right-wing parties in Germany and also in the whole of Europe were rising quite strongly, and also there were a lot of right-wing groups attacking art events, attacking theaters or also artists in Germany and Europe. And there was a small group of independent artists in Berlin who came together and thought, we have to do something. We have to do something apart our art projects, going into public space and solidarizing with each other and also with the institutions which are attacked. So we started to meet every week and discussing what are the possibilities, what could we do, because there was the last big elections in Germany 3 years ago, and we wanted to prevent this right-wing party to be elected, which did not work, but I think we did the subject got more and more public, and I think it was a good move to start to talk in the public space, to talk to people around art institutions and to try to get together. And perhaps, Raul, you want to continue with our first actions while I start some pictures for you.
Yes, thank you, Feline, for this introduction. So coming together in public means as well to organize, to organize happenings or even demonstrations, protests. And as we felt that right-wing groups and far-right activities were rising in the streets, we were thinking of also marching and showing off, and by being more visible, we had different ideas to also allow the media, let's say, to give a different coverage, to give a different visual, different visual footage, and to show in different media formats, to not only focus always on this smaller right-wing or extremist groups. And we wanted to really, as we are a very big artist community in Berlin, we really wanted to show our strengths and our kind of solidarity. And these images you see are the first protest marches we organized. They were often in connection with some counter protests against far-right activities, mostly of one far-right party we have in Germany. And then we also started to organize events that were more about topics that we were thinking are important to rise right now, instead of always reacting, always kind of being dragged in or kind of attended by this shift in discourse. So we wanted to raise our own topics again.
Yes, perhaps you see you see always these golden rescue blankets. That was, of course, one reaction on the refugees coming to Europe at that time, or still coming to Europe, and the kind of solidarity with them. But on the other hand, it was also like the gold, like the beauty, and to go for the glamour, and not only like the war or what Raul just said, being against something, but being for diversity, being for minorities, and trying to also see it as a positive thing and not only as a contra.
Also visually opposing, I mean, with the pink and the gold, we kind of really strongly outed ourselves in the streets as a movement against the far right. That was,
yes, I think one of our first aims. Yeah, one of our first aims was to create bigger pictures. We thought, what can we do as artists? What other people perhaps cannot do that good is creating pictures and images. And we thought, okay, let's try to create bigger pictures than the right-wing people, and more inclusive pictures. So that was also one reason we quite soon started to try to translate in very different languages, as you can see here.
And besides, you're mentioning the different languages. It's a very international artist community in Berlin. So the multi-language communication was also meant to reach also people that might be also more marginalized in Berlin, in the city of Berlin. And besides really, let's say, having a visual attractor on the street, our activities were also about organizing, really getting together different peoples on the table. As we were introduced at the beginning, Feline comes from a different artistic background than I do, so it's also about getting different genres, getting different artist fields together, and work on something together, which creates some kind of solidarity, which is also between more powerful players and smaller groups, smaller ensembles, smaller institutions. And especially for me as a visual artist, it is very important to get individuals as well together, because often visual artists work not within these big institutional structures, not in theaters or other major German art institutions. So it was important to really bring bring people together on a table and prevent attacks to be happen.
Yes, and to do so, we, after these first actions, we brought out the Declaration of the Many, because we realized a lot of institutions came to us and they wanted to be part of the many. And we thought, okay, how can we organize all these different institutions, as Raul just said, like big opera houses, small galleries, or museums? How can we organize them and bring them together? And we wrote together with a few people the Declaration of the Many, firstly in Berlin. And by signing this declaration, these institutions, they say they don't give their stage to right-wing people, and they also sign that they will do actions, they will do things for audience, things just for their team, to prevent the right-wing parties getting into their roles or solidarizing with other institutions which got attacked. And this declaration was growing quite quickly. So we had the press conference, here you see the picture, in Berlin. And then after Berlin, we had a lot of other cities and regions in Germany who did the same for their city.
To mention now, it's more than 4,000 institutions signing, and what is really important to mention is that it really comes with a certain code of action, or let's say some rules to apply, and this is really important to not give any stage to far right and extremist, these extremist activities, and also also reflect in-house, deal with racism, deal with an audience maybe you have not included in your program, and these things are very, very important to raise every time again.
Yeah. Yes, and I think it was a really interesting time at that moment, because everywhere you were driving in Germany or also in Austria, suddenly you saw these golden flags that worked quite well because it's cheap. You can get it in every shop here in Germany because you have to have it in the car. And it was a simple symbol to solidarize with each other and try to make actions together and not alone. And we got a lot of feedback from institutions who said, oh wow, now it's so much easier. We are not afraid to react on these protests, on these attacks. So
there was a big fear to be political, or kind of to speak up and to show attitude, and I think that was a long process during the last 3 years to allow even very conservative institutions to get together and show solidarity against this inhuman activities, and there was actually a great success. But as Feline mentioned at the beginning, this far-right party, which brought us to the streets at the beginning, they entered the parliament. So what was important for us to continue was as well that there is no way that they get any how to say further involvement into let's say coalitions with other political parties. So what was important, that kind of the center parties, that they show up, and that they also show an attitude against including this kind of politics into their program to attract more voters. So to show a clear, let's say, opposition against, and I think that was quite then a success that we still in Germany we don't have a government participation of a far right and authoritarian group and party. So, and this is also what drives us to go on with the activity, and later at the end we will speak a bit about our new let's say campaign.
Yes, I think also after we created this network in Germany and Austria, we also thought about our European partners. And for example, this picture was a manifestation for the freedom of the arts, and we invited speakers and artists from Poland, from Hungary, and I think also other countries who were speaking for their countries. So, I mean, there are a lot of countries in Europe which have really problems for their artists to really express what they want to express. And many of them flee, or others, just work in the underground. So I think it's a subject realized which would be so much better to be not only in a national context, which now in this COVID-19 time is very difficult to have this European network. But I think that's something we work on still at the moment, to try to get partners in Europe or even overseas. So I think there shouldn't be any borders. And I think this power of the arts is a special one, and it can really cross borders for some subjects.
Yeah, thanks to mention. I also put in the chat a link to our site. There's also a Spanish translation of the declaration, and maybe it's kind of is a little seed somewhere. I think this solidarity from bigger players to smaller individuals, this kind of really working together on different subjects, as also pressure with social media is a really big problem for smaller art initiatives or for smaller institutions. This can be a way to help each other out with also some stuff that joins in if somebody gets really attacked by through these social media channels, for instance. But also, I mean, there are many other reasons which are also which also should lead to activities on the street. And what was really difficult for us in Germany now during the COVID time to, I mean, as for everybody, to do really activities which brought us together, kind of really sharing a space and physical activities. We tried really much to not let loose and keep on going, and we tried out different digital formats. And later we will show some videos about actually a digital series of action days we did, which were surely not as close to what we are doing when we have all the freedom to meet, but it was still an activity to keep in touch, to also be productive and produce content, also for the digital spaces. And and also we try to do small activities which fitted in to some hygienic plans and measurements. And as I said, at the end we will have some video footage to show.
Yes, and as you see here, one part of this Corona activities was also working with projections, because we thought, okay, if we cannot with the people in one spot, we have perhaps to go to the people and project what we want to say on their houses or across their houses, so they can read, or they can read when they drive by. And we did a lot of projections in Berlin, either on cultural institutions like here on a big theater, but also out of a car, driving through the streets. And that worked quite well. So I think it's always about transporting these slogans and very simple slogans and contents to the public space, and discussing it and communicating it and not hiding it, or just doing it inside a theater play or inside an exhibition. So that was some pictures from these action days. And how, you want to add something, or should we see this first film?
Yeah, it would be nice. Let's see the first film.
So I finished my presentation here now, and we would see like a film, like a kind of a trailer documentation from these action days we did online together with all our partners and institutions in Germany and Austria who signed the Declaration of the Many. This says never again.
So you see the variety of groups of different artist genres coming together. So it's really from dance to theater, of visual arts to any music performance.
Yes, and I think one of our big really works is not to curate these things. Of course, I mean it's living out of the variety, and it's living out of the huge amount of aesthetics, people, different ages, different art forms coming together. Yeah, thank you.
And that was in May this year, and then the last 6 months were a bit more quiet, but they were not. They were just, let's say, sound-wise quiet. We still had a lot of things to do. I mean, there are still a lot of activities, often from some kind of conspiracy ideologists that kind of not take any measurements and measures, and they are not very much in solidarity with any vulnerable people. And so that was also a big challenge for us the last 6 months, to be let's say present in some form and being active and alert. and not and opposing these people as well. So just to mention.
Yes, because we have the next elections in Germany, and of course these people try to use the moment, to use the situation we have now, and to take advantage out of it. And it's quite difficult, especially, I don't know, I mean, everyone has it at the moment in the world, because it's so existential problems in front of the door, but to keep on talking about these things, to keep on somehow going into public space. And that's actually what we did now in autumn. We had a week of the many, which was more kind of an inside conference space we created online as well as you do. And we invited a lot of experts and artists coming together and discussing how can we work, or how can we start a new campaign for the next elections, and start to bring the people together, even if it's not possible in a physical way.
And one, yeah, please.
One action in this week, we were thinking if we should do it or not, then we did it in the end, was a very local one in Berlin. There is a monument for the Sinti and Roma, you say in German. I hope it's the same in English. Which were dying in the Second World War. And it was a discussion from the city to build a train way, like a train way there, that
the train track through the memorial. And we did an activity to let's say save the memorial, as nowadays we question a lot of memorials, or we question a lot of sculptures in public. This one is one that we really highly recommend to save, and to also in these times where minority groups are really under pressure, we need this visibility also for their victims of the Holocaust. That was very important for us to show solidarity with this group, and to save this monument not to be taken down just for a metro to be built. That's what the video is about.
Yes, and I think it's a good example to show how then in Berlin all these different institutions came together. So it's not a group of protesters just standing in front of the memorial. It was like really these art institutions coming together and having a short
sending one person, sending as a kind of ambassador.
Yes.
So
yeah,
one person stands for many.
Exactly. That's a bit what we say. So yeah, perhaps we can see this as an example of a very small Corona time action, which was as well very nice and solidarizing. Can we see the next video, please?
So this is really central Berlin, between the Parliament and the Brandenburger Tor. Very nice, well designed memorial. You see the names of the different concentration camps engraved in stones in the ground, and there's quiet water and surrounded by trees, and from the trees there are speakers playing a sound, playing a violin. And just to explain the activity, so we with the distance to be taken, we kind of formed a bond, a line of golden, a safety wall, let's say, a golden safety bond around the monument.
And we worked again with our projections. We had really strong lamps, like pocket lamps, and had some filters in front of them with our slogans. And then we had like a few speakers. And yes, it is very central in Berlin. There were a few people coming by, but I think what is also very important for these actions is to document them well, because a lot of people watch it later. They don't go on the street anymore, but they see it on social media, they see it in the press, in the newspapers. And I think that's something we learned out of this whole crisis.
And Philine, you mentioned already our initiative for the next year, or kind of our direction that we want to go with the activity with Die Vielen. And it's mainly about, I mean, before we close this session and we stop talking, just to mention, it's about focusing on the people who cannot vote, instead of focusing on the people that can vote, but vote for parties that are against our basic democratic society or basic democratic rights. And so instead of focusing, which is also very tiring, focusing on these far-right groups and authoritarian groups, we focus on the people, migrants that live in Germany, which are not allowed to vote. So this a link between citizenship and voting rights is something highly questionable, as people live mostly years, 20 years or even more in Germany without having the full citizen rights. We want to raise these questions and talk about this topic with all our signing institutions. So this will be something roll out in the coming spring.
Yes, and I think one topic out of that is, of course, to strengthen democracy by this talk, by this discussing. And I think especially now, that's very important to come back to what our system was actually about. And it's always good to think about how can we participate, and how can we bring people into the circle to participate. Because if you don't have the right to vote, you are also not interested in the politics in the country you live in. Mm-hmm. So we thought it's very important to make everyone also responsible, feeling responsible for what is happening in the country they live in. Yes, but this will start, and as we heard in the talk before this, that there is also an election coming in Chile. So who knows? Perhaps we can make some solidarity actions, solidarity posters, and that would be great, actually, to also cross the borders over the ocean.
Cross continents.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's it, Raul. No, we would be open for questions. Yeah.
Thank you very much for your time.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much, Philine and Raul. Muchas gracias. Philine and Raul, now we're going to switch into Spanish.
So now we're going to speak Spanish, all right? So you can maybe press the interpretation button so you can listen to the translation, all right? So I was thanking our guests, and I was explaining now that now the conversation is going to be in Spanish. Our guests will listen to the interpreters, just like you did into Spanish. So thank you very much. I want to thank our translators. So I want to welcome you all once again. I want to give you some recommendations, instructions for what we're going to have now in this conversation time. This conversation is going to be recorded. So later we can have in the YouTube channel of the GAM webpage. I mean, we can share it with everyone for the ones who couldn't make it today in the morning. So what we're going to do now, it is to invite participants into the Zoom conversation so we can all share in the same space, time and place. We're not forced to turn on our cameras, but if you wish to turn on your cameras, well, you're more than welcome. So we can have a conversation. And of course, you can ask questions to Feline and Raul, and we're going to be delighted to see each other, even in this digital format. So now we're going to let people in, and we're going to add people into this Zoom screen. I want to remind you that this seminar, Co-Practices, it is being organized together between GAM, GAM, and Pre Helvetia. So we, of course, want social networks. I mean, you social networks should be able to share images, questions, and thoughts. So social networks, of course, are open for everyone.
Questions will be very easy to follow. There are several options. One of them is that you turn on your camera, or you may raise your hand. The other possibility is to raise your virtual hand and generate any kind of question, maybe for Raul or for Feline. And finally, there's the option for those people, if they are shy and they don't want to ask in a loud voice, they may use the chat option to write their questions. I will pay attention to the questions so I can ask our guests. But I would like to start maybe with the first question. Feline, Raul, we got a mission to create visibility as a sector, as a guild. These are actions that solidarize, as you have commented, solidarize with minorities in the artistic sector. However, I would like to ask the following. In Chile, we are in a very similar situation. You mentioned that, Feline. We are about to have elections, and we have been manifesting on the streets as of October 19, coming from different situations that we as a Chilean society, we think those situations need to change. So the question I want to ask is, what do you feel might be the changes in cultural policies, in public policies, in countries in general? Maybe in Germany, Chile, or in other places in the world of Europe. What are the changes that should happen in the cultural and public policies to safeguard and protect in a better way the freedom of speech, the artistic creation, and the work format of the performing arts, of visual arts, of arts in general? What are the changes you think that might be urgent to make?
Should I start, Raul, perhaps?
Yeah, please.
Yes, okay. Yes, I think, like speaking from the Feline context, I would say it's very important to open the doors of the institutions and to get out of the artist bubble, we say in Germany, to include like really different people in the discussion. So what we said before, so everyone feels also responsible. And it's not only about protesting, being against something. I think it's very important to protest as well. But it's also about thinking what could be a possibility. How could we organize ourselves, even if it is just a very small group? So I think what we also experienced working since years for Die Vielen is that sometimes these small actions work really better than the big one, and it's good to start with a small one and then getting bigger afterwards. But that would be, I think, one thing I would suggest from my side.
I mean, what is really important is really to prevent this erosion of institutions, and it's not just let's say the freedom of speech. It's also, I mean, the freedom of the arts. it's the art institutions that kind of give us the possibility to come together, to develop our ideas, to kind of also share thoughts and share knowledge. So this freedom was really something that we felt is under pressure when political groups want to kind of cut fundings when there is not a certain kind of culture they kind of in favor shown. When this kind of freedom is lost, and also it's about money for sure. It's about financing the arts, and it's also in Germany we have a system as well for not just funding institutions which then, let's say, hire artists or allow productions. We also have possibilities to apply to kind of really give small groups or smaller initiatives the possibility to work, and this has a lot to do with not just dealing with the state. It has also a lot to do with dealing with the environment you work in. So it's also about let's say real estate trouble. It's about, you know, finding spaces. It's about also allowing a diverse environment to happen, you know, allow really like not marginalize people or artists, because I'm talking from an artist perspective, not marginalize them to work outside of town because they cannot afford. Think about a society which needs all these activities, which needs art as it needs a kindergarten or a library and all these things. They, you know, they have to come together, and somehow it's also a problem of neoliberalism for sure, and the problem of capitalism we are in right now. So that's also an existential question, I would say.
Yes, I think that's a good description, Raul. I think also what you just said, it's important to stay in the community you are working in. So what is about democracy in the institution you work in, or between the different institutions in one city, like the big ones, the small ones, and how can we work with the media we know to work with. So I think also the role of the artist, I have the feeling in Europe is also that some more and more I have the feeling artists are really asked for helping in political difficult situations, to find solutions, to think outside this parliament situations, and I think it's really a chance as well for the arts to react.
I hope this answers somehow the question. It was a very big question, let's say, as well.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, exactly. You answer some of the question, and you also complement it with other ideas and other things. So thank you very much for your replies. I would also like to know that at some point, Raul, in your presentation, you mentioned something like, we didn't want to be so political. So it seemed to me, well, I took notes about that, because that's in a political activism somehow at a certain degree. So in that sense, I would like to ask you, did you experience some complex moments? Was it difficult at some points within the organization of these protests, of these acts, were you threatened, for example, by other groups? Did you kind of receive any type of comment that was inappropriate or dangerous at some point related to the work you were doing on the street with the artists and the institutions?
I mean, besides of social media, not. I mean, I have not been personally threatened or anything like this, but we have this kinds of activities here in Germany quite a lot. So people get really, if your question was going in this direction, we have really like people getting death threats, and this was also a reason why we came together to form this group as well, to not let this kind of go through, because we also experienced some kind of getting numb about certain attacks. So the more they happen, the more it's kind of okay, or let's say the more it's tolerated. So it was also, yeah, about really giving securing the health and the personal freedom of some individuals.
But I think the DeFiern, I mean, our organization really got problems. Like 1 or 2 years ago, we had this in the parliament. This right-wing party was trying to threaten us and to forbid actually our work, but they didn't go through because we got a lot of help from the other parties here.
True, that's true. On the parliament level, in each state or in many of the state parliaments, there were questions about us, like who is
how did they try to block you or prevent you from doing your work? Particularly, could you mention some actions, some particular actions when explaining how they try to do so?
They are allowed to ask certain questions, kind of, they have a questionnaire they can apply, and then the ruling or kind of the governing parties have to respond. They have to explain themselves. But since we are really independent, and since we are a foundation, let's say, but it comes a bit with the pressure I was talking about at the beginning, about showing an attitude. A lot of people working in public institutions, they think they have to be somehow neutral. You know, they have to be neutral, but it's not about neutrality. You know, if you talk about, let's say, basic human rights, or if you talk about the freedom of speech, or if you talk about the freedom of press, if this is under attack, it's not about neutrality, you know. And it's also, there's not such a thing in our constitution that tells anybody in working in this kind of public service to be neutral in this sense. So I mean, that was also a bit of a learning process for every Democrat in the parliaments as well, that they kind of raised the voice against these questions which are coming from the far right. And sure, what they want to do, and what is the power they have. They want to destroy careers. They want to destroy through funding and through positions people get. They want to have influence, and this is something highly problematic. Yeah.
I think also the network what we created in our between our institutions here in Germany, that frightened them, of course, because they wanted to put other people in, like as the director of the museum. They wanted to bring their people in these directing positions, and they realized this is not possible anymore, because these institutions were kind of together. And I think what helped us getting out of these parliamentary questionnaire was that we never really spoke against this, like officially, like in public. We did never spoke against this right-wing party. We always we're talking
certain individuals. Yeah.
Yes. It was.
We show an attitude that they can 100% not associate with. So this is kind of a strategy to prevent, to be always in direct content, because it's not also always about one party. You know, it's also about different groups and so on. But I mean, since this one party in Germany got really powerful, we got kind of the pressure from them, and it was also for them a good sign to see that they cannot win this cultural war they kind of wanted to start, because as a cultural war, they really, I mean, it's really existential questions. I said it's like I mean, a good example would be to say they just want, let's say, German theater in German theaters. You know, the German language should be, you know, this kind of attitude they have, and this is not very inclusive. And you can also show where they're kind of fishing for voters. I mean, that's really nationalists, and it's really people who might have felt like it's a bit what Trump also tried in the US, kind of, and this kind of cultural war we also experienced here. But I think, yeah, I think
one thing what also helped us was that we were not funded by the government or by the Senate. We were like only private. We got private money, and then later we got money from a foundation, but it was never really from the city or from the state. Because if that would have been so, I think this party would have kicked us out, because you are not allowed to be so political somehow.
Yeah, but I have to say, we are also, I mean, it's also voluntarily work. So, I mean, all the people we that come together are voluntarily working, and now we have a little structure and so on. But it's also artists coming together that do personal donations and think, okay, that's a good thing. Let's start a poster campaign, and then they finance the poster campaign on one side, and then the other is joining in one protest here. So it's also, we are also finding our own kind of monetary structure.
Very, very interesting when you mention funding, because you have commented that in both senses. Because on one hand, the funding might be censorship when forbidding you, preventing you from doing your work. But on the other hand, being free from these ties, from receiving state funding, gives you this sense of independence, giving you the possibility to have your own voice without, I mean, being accountable in front of government. You see, it's interesting how funding plays a fundamental role in community organizations of political exercise, as well as artistic. And in that sense of communities, which is the word that is gathering us today, communities, in this seminar, I am very clear about the participation and the exercise you had with artistic communities, both individual artists, those who start this movement, and then you have cultural institutions. But what happens with the audience? What happened with audiences, with citizenship? People who are not from the arts sphere, people who do not participate from this world, people who relate to us from their participation, from the access, from the consumption place. What happened with citizenship? Did you feel you have support? You were greatly supported. To us in Chile, audiences somehow are divided between those who support a cause and those who feel that arts are just a dissidence space. How did you experience the actions you've been carrying out in social networks, I fear? Have you been able to observe the citizenship participation and the public audience response? Well, let me remind you that if you want to ask a question, you may raise your hand or use your chat.
I don't know if I really understood what you said, but I try, perhaps. I think there's an impulse coming from the artists, like what we did, like these actions. For example, there's a manifestation and we prepare like these golden flags, or we prepare some music and we go out. And I think what for me was really interesting coming from the performing arts, that this impulse does not only work in between the audience of the theater, it works the same or even better on the street, in the public, and with people who never go to theater or exhibition. And I think that was a really nice moment for me also, as like an artistic experience, that how you can use what you learned, your profession, to and as an artistic media, to go out on the street and really create this public movement, which is different from of course from a theater performance or from an exhibition, but I think it's also different from just a political demonstration. There is still this I don't know how to describe it, but it's a different movement than just a demonstration on the street against, I don't know, something. I think there's a different atmosphere, there's a different vibe,
We also focus on audiences. So the activities, we always try to go to certain neighborhoods to take people with. You know, we also did things in, let's say, periphery places. So it's also about a bit really taking people with, you know, and also when you say there's a split in a society, or there's like two different opposing groups, we really try to take people in and, you know, take them with, and this is kind of what happened to our marches, that they always grow. We started with and this kind of snowball activities are kind of now a bit frozen, but they were working quite well.
Well, thank you very much. Are there any other questions or doubts from the audience, or anyone with a comment, not necessarily a question, but I don't know, maybe someone wants to congratulate, I mean, the guys, I mean, Feline and Raul, or want to give an opinion about what they have done. Feline, you said something that I thought it was quite precise. How can we make of this movement a global movement? Not only in Europe, because we're in Chile, in a similar situation, similar scenario, and we'd like to know, and we'd like to take your invitation, we'd like to accept it, on how we can get together. Because the many should be many more, right? So what can we do from Latin America? What can we do from here, from our country, in order to get in touch, to be in touch with you, besides sharing the manifest that Raul wrote, shared it in a link, right? Mm-hmm. So how can we keep in touch with your activities?
I think one very important aspect was for us always this decentralized ideas. So we also don't really have spokespersons or anything, you know. Everybody can be defiant, and also each individual has as well many identities, let's say. So it's kind of about this super plurality, and really thinking about a transnational action, or let's say even post-national. So you are just, let's say, it's about self-empowerment. Maybe it's about surely keeping in touch, but I think sharing values and work in your own community and space, and from there look beyond. And yeah, now we are, yeah, please. Or performances, I think, can be shared. I think there were some inspiring performances coming from Chile already. So we also watching the news from Chile and seeing very strong footage, very strong images too about like really socially engaged citizens. Feline.
Yes, that's right. There is commitment from the citizens, and there's someone raising a hand. So we'd like to, offer the floor for that person, Ricardo Silva. He has a comment. Ricardo, you can turn on your camera or your mic, whatever you prefer. Well, I will turn on my mic because I am in a therapy right now, therapy session. But anyways, I want to greet you all. Thank you for the presentation. And basically, I want to comment Raul. I want to tell something to Raul. Here in Chile, we live for quite a long time. I mean, the precarization of the artistic world, it is too poor. Our artisan craftsmanship, public policies are jeopardizing, all of these sectors. And the funds are so scarce. So from your experience as the many in Germany, how would you see, how would you visualize, or which are the main goals that you would suggest we should include in a new constitution? Because we're about to decide the new constitution. We have the support. 80% of the population is supported for this new constitution. So how would you visualize? How would you see as as an artist? Because you have the role of an artist and also as a spokesperson. How would you try to convey this? It's a question for both Raul or Philippe. Feline, I'm sorry.
Feline, do you want?
Yeah, I would. I think it's a lot about this freedom of the arts. I would say I would start there. What does it mean, and how is it really in our country or in your country? Is it really possible? Like, or do people really like have this freedom of the arts?
This should be in the constitution. I think it's one. There are many things, but this would be one important thing, that press, art, that these things remain free and independent.
Yes, and I think when you look at your own institutions, I think you realize very soon, there are a lot of things which are actually not so free. Like we have in Germany, we had this big discussion now. Also after this Black Lives Matter movement, what is about racism, and who are the people leading actually our institutions? How many Black people are really involved in this? So this is just one example of freedom of the arts. It's always the question of who is thinking about this freedom of the arts? Is it me as the white person living in Germany, or is it someone else living here for 10 years but coming from a different background? So, yeah.
And I think also the gender role still a big topic as well. Here in Germany, we have a lot of, most of the art sector is still not really inclusive in terms of different gender, and this is a big topic, and this could be also part of let's say a constitution, that they're really like that. Even if there would be some transparency and some numbers and some statistics about, we can count it often, but there are not many art institutions led by women, and then you can really more parameters you have, the more you see that there's not much diversity, and there's not a very diverse field of heading people, and this can be something really important to change. And this also then changes the way we see art, the way we experience art, and the way we show art, and we allow art to happen. So these kind of really that the artistic field is really a mirror of our society, and not as it is structured right now. But there are many things to write.
There are many things, yes, you could say also participation, but then we are again in this voting question. Yeah, somehow I think to strengthen the democratic field is definitely important. Again and again, we will never reach it probably. Did it answer your question a little bit, or?
Absolutely, yes. Thank you very much, Raul and Feline. Yes, yes, thank you. Thank you, Ricardo, for your participation and for your question. Well then, so some things that I want to tell you in order to close this conversation. First of all, we have a surprise. And as a part of our seminar, we have a graphical record of conversations. Graphic records are an instance where we offer a visual summary of the conversation we have had. We are working with Christine Neckelman. She is our friend helping us in this work, specific work. And I'd like to see if Christine can share, I mean, what she has represented in this conversation. There it is. This is a premiere of what we have talked. We're summarizing ideas here. Feline, Raul, you have been graphically recorded. You have been drawn there. So thank you, Christine. Thank you for showing us, I mean, how this is evolving. All of you who have enrolled into the seminar and who received the link will receive on your email this graphic record. You can save it. Please share it in social networks. It is a creative way and a concrete and fun way for sharing ideas. We're going to share it with you all. Every single one. You will receive it in your email. Thank you, Christine, for sharing.
Thank you so much.
Wonderful.
So now, before saying goodbye to our friends from the many, I want to remind you, all of the people that at noon, we're going to continue with another panel. This panel will deal about practices on how we can create communities into this creative process of inclusion. We will be talking to Francisco Medina, Francisca Guerra. They are part of the Inclusive Residence Project here at GAM. And we'll also have some Teatro Hora participants. They have been working for more than 20 years, especially with inclusive professional practices. They have been working with artists and creators with some disability. So we invite you to get connected. It will not be in the same Zoom. We can close this Zoom and you are going to receive a connection link from Digital GAM. You will receive it in your emails. So please check it. Sometimes it is in the spam. So just verify it. If you don't find it, try to find it in the spam. And social networks, we're going to be, really aware in order to send you the link. So a warm round of applause for our guests. Thank you very much. Thank you for joining us. This has been an absolutely inspiring conversation connected to what we have been talking about, our main topic. Angelica, would you like to have some words, closing words? Well, thank you very much. I have some, they're hammering on my wall, so I don't really think it would be good to think too much, but and thank you. I want to thank GAM for organizing this activity as well. Excellent. So thank you very much. Remember, share all of these conversations and thoughts with everyone. We're going to be together for 2 days. This is day number 1. So please don't go away. Thank you very much. Have a nice day. Stay safe.